Qualifying for the Singapore Grand Prix comes from Martin Brundle and David Croft.
Half a dozen of the best drivers have a realistic chance of pole position this evening. Who will eventually hit the rest for 6? Welcome along to qualifying ahead of round 15 in this 2016 Formula One World Championship. We're here in the Lion City, 88 miles north of the equator, and about 172 miles from the next venue, Sepang in Malaysia. It is hot and it is humid, and as ever, the Marina Bay Street Circuit is bathed in beautiful light, be it from the Singapore Flyer or one of the 1,500 bulbs that illuminates this 3.1 mile circuit. 23 corners, 14 to the left, 9 to the right. 2 DRS zones. Speed is not of the essence here, but great traction out of the multitude of slow corners is an absolute necessity, and a good aero package could well be rewarded, Martin Brundle, with possibly an upset and a Mercedes not at the front of the grid.
Well, let's wait and see. Let's hope we get some surprises and certainly some close action. The drivers love this track. They're throwing their cars around it, particularly the Red Bull boys. I must say, they're really relishing each and every corner. We've seen cars up the escape road, cars in the wall at turn 11. They seem to be struggling, it's a little slippery there too, and really living on their wits and trying to extract a little bit more time out of this 23-turn circuit. And it's not too hot up there in the end, is it? Track 33, air 30, humidity 60. It's kind of pleasant this time of the evening, isn't it, in terms of what they do have to do during the day. But it's now that where the action is this time of night for qualifying and for the race. They've done their work now on tyres and suspension setup, everything that they want to do when they're running 100 kilograms of fuel on the start line. This is all about pure speed.
If you weren't with us for FP3 for only the 3rd time this year, Nico Rosberg was the fastest driver, but only by 5/100ths of a second from the man in that car. Well, not in that car at the moment, at the back of the garage, Max Verstappen. Kylie Minogue getting the I should be so lucky tour of the McLaren garage. I would imagine the temperature in there, Martin, is hotting up as well. That's the sort of reward the boys need down at McLaren after a difficult season. Kylie's come to pay him a visit.
Yeah, we've seen Kylie over the years.
Talk amongst yourself, I'm going away for 10 minutes.
Kylie has been to a few Grand Prix over the years. She knows Jensen very well and enjoys her F1. She's not just hair profiling, but she is also performing, isn't she, downtown tomorrow?
I think she was singing last night, I'm told. We were working till late. It's Queen and Adam Lambert tonight, if you fancy a gig after qualifying. Although you've probably got a few gigs yourself, because we've got a pole sitter to try and interview as well. Will it be Rosberg or Hamilton? Will they get a 58th pole as teammates, and will they break the record held as teammates by Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber at Red Bull? Will Vettel himself get Ferrari's first pole since he was at the front of the grid here in 2015? Could Kimi Raikkonen get pole for the first time since France 2008? Will it be a second pole in Formula One for Daniel Ricciardo? Will it be a first pole for Max Verstappen? Let's take a look at some qualifying pointers from Mark Hughes of Motorsport Magazine, who says an intriguing choice facing Mercedes this evening regarding which tyre it will use in Q2. Will it be the super soft or the ultra soft? Big difference in pace, but have Mercedes got enough just to get through into that top 10 on the slightly slower tyre? Raikkonen has responded well to the ultra soft tyre here. Interesting to see whether he can maintain competitiveness with Sebastian Vettel. Raikkonen 3rd fastest in the FP3 session, Vettel 5th fastest. And of the closely matched Red Bull and Ferrari, Ricciardo looks to have the best potential of causing an upset to Mercedes, and that is because he's been mighty. And you alluded to this, Martin, in that middle sector of the track.
Yes, he's certainly giving it everything, this Daniel Ricciardo. He feels he was robbed in Monaco, and where he only finished 2nd after some dramas. That race was taken away from him, and I think he feels this is a chance to put that right. He's due some luck. Jensen struggling a little bit in pace for FP3 this morning. What do you got for us, Ted?
Hello, Martin. Well, it's steaming hot down here. It's actually just as hot as it feels as Lewis Hamilton goes out right in front of me straight away on the purple striped ultra soft tyres, and that's interesting, isn't it? They've got plenty of them, but it's normally the unfavoured tyre in which they go out first of all in Q1. So we'll see how that develops. But plenty of big names on their back foot going into this session. McLaren And Williams just wondering where their pace has gone. They're thinking they can get at least one car into the top 10 into Q3, hopefully both. But you never know. Strange things happen around here, don't they? And Felipe Massa really struggling in free practice 3, as well as the Renaults and the usual candidates of the Saubers and Manners. But you never know. We could have a big name going out in this Q1 session.
Interesting to see the Mercedes of Rosberg stopping at the end of the pit lane to do a practice start. They don't normally do that on new tyres when it's all about the lap time. So we know that they've been struggling on some of their starts, and I'm told the drivers have not been doing anything wrong particularly. It's just some of the clutches are reacting in a different way to others. It was explained to me today. So still feeling that they know this World Championship could be decided on getting down to the first corner if you can get it on the front row.
So 6 out of 8 pole positions have won the Singapore Grand Prix, 8 previous races. With starts becoming so important, does this now make this the most important pole position for the rest of the season, given how difficult it is to pass it?
Yes, there were 11 on-track passes here last year, equal lowest of the year. Well, 15 of those seem to be Max Verstappen coming back through the pack.
Yeah, only 5, but you're right.
Yes, it's in my mind's eye. And so passing, it's not, as always with street circuits, it's not a strong point, but I think undercuts will be tomorrow. And as you say, getting down to the first corner, we'll get pretty punchy down there, to say the least.
Valtteri Bottas has made his way into Q3 12 times this season, but he's not scoring the points that he needs. Felipe Massa has been on pole position here in Singapore before, in the very first Singapore night race in 2008. Boy, could Williams, in their battle with Force India, do with a good qualifying and a decent race from either of those two. The infinity pool at the top of the Marina Bay Sands Hotel, 150 meters long. The big wheel, the Singapore Flyer, 165 meters high. But for the next hour, it's not the big wheel we focus on, it's the 4 wheels on each of the 22 cars as Rosberg starts his first flying lap. It's bumpy here. Sparks will fly for the next hour. Can Rosberg maintain some of the momentum that he's built up since the summer break? Strike here on this Saturday night. First job, get themselves out of Q1. The slowest 6 will all make their way towards the media to be interviewed. The next 16 go forward into Q2. We lose 6 more and then 10 to the shootout for pole position. How's this lap so far?
Great front end on them. Oh, he's locked a brake into there. That's going to run him a little bit wide. He had a scruffy turn 1 as well. Took too much curb, put him slightly offline for turn 2. So it's not a lap that's been perfect by any means for Nico Rosberg, but when he put a turn into the steering wheel, the nose of the car just went straight into the apex. What a lovely feeling it must be driving this car when it's so well set up. Back end hopping over the bumps. The car generally looks quite stiff, it must be said. We saw with Hamilton this morning as well, locking up brakes, the car bottoming out quite a lot. If you look underneath it, as the speed builds, the downforce builds, and that's why they start sparking towards the end of the straight. Brake disc glowing over 1,000 degrees as they retard the car, and a little left-hand curve of 15 into turn 16 and 17. Ride the curve up against the barrier, and this is a critical braking point. Rosberg went off on Friday through here, not too far out because you need to sweep across the track for the right-hander. And 21, 22 right up against the wall where they tend to be scuffing all the way along there, and 2 very fast corners to go into the pit straight. Then they can open the DRS, the rear wing, there it goes, and over the line, and it's a 45.3. And I don't think that's a very good time at all on those tyres.
Q1 last year was a 1:45.3, best time from Danny Kvyat on that particular occasion. Already Hamilton through the first 2 sectors is a couple of tenths up on his teammate. Grosjean and Palmer cross the line. Hamilton hoping he's still got grip left in those ultra-soft tyres. Little bit squirmy coming out of turn 21. Round the final corner we go, and he is the fastest by a 1/10 of a second, just over, with a 1:45.1. Talking to Esteban Gutierrez, Martin, and he was saying if you push too hard in that opening sector here, you do run the risk of overheating your tyres, and it doesn't leave you enough for the final sector. You've got to be so careful and cautious and find that compromise between pace and preservation as well.
Absolutely right. It's a long lap, and therefore it's a long out lap as well. I really thought they would be in the 44s, those two Mercedes, on those tyres.
Still time.
Yeah. Will they want to run again? Would they normally want to run again in Q1? But they've gone out early, as Ted pointed out. Let's see what the others come up with. But I think Red Bull must be looking at that and thinking, all right, I can match that.
At least for Hamilton, he's actually got a qualifying run in without any problems. This morning, as you mentioned, locked up going into turn 7. Yesterday took him 5 attempts, by which time he had pretty much no life left in his tyres.
It was a great onboard shot, wasn't it? I really enjoyed going around with Lewis from that camera angle. Jenson Button goes third, 1.3 off the pace of the Mercedes.
And there is the man that will take Jenson Button's seat for next season, Stoffel van Dorn, GP2 champion, competing in Super Formula at the moment over in Japan. For once, he hasn't got a terribly long flight to go back to the day job once he's been stood around in the F1 paddock for a while. Here's a man that looked good this morning, Nico Hülkenberg, 6th fastest for Force India. Can that transfer to a decent top 10 finish in qualifying as Fiat keeps out of the way? 2 Toro Rossos as well, both enjoying the fact that this circuit isn't as power dependent as Monza or as Spa was, and that 2015 Ferrari engine that hasn't had any development whatsoever since the back end of last season, not as disadvantaged. Hülkenberg is 6/10 down, but that's actually not a bad effort through the first 2 sectors.
These corners always look much tighter when you rock up at 150, 200 miles an hour, over 300 kilometers per hour top speed. Just wagging its tail a little bit, complaining as he puts too much torque demand in, too much throttle in, and but it kept going forwards. That's the main thing. Dancing across those curves, minding the wall on the right. Wow, how close was that? And
about the width of that fan's fan.
And then a little bit cheaty through the last corner that they're all pretty much doing.
Well, apparently you don't get an advantage through that one, so no one has mentioned track limits at all. Track lizards we had today, but not track limits.
At Massa's time then, up there.
Yeah. Well, that's almost come from nowhere, that sort of pace from Williams.
Ahead of Hülkenberg. Bit of traffic about now for Valtteri Bottas.
It's not where you want traffic there, is it?
The psychedelic ultra-soft Pirelli tyres.
Well done, Max Verstappen, for keeping out of the way. As past our commentary box in the Singapore Flyer, now comes Valtteri Bottas. How good is Felipe Massa's time? Can his teammate try and match it? He goes 5th fastest. And the difference between Bottas and Massa, a mere 3/100ths of a second. And Hülkenberg in the middle.
I think Williams will be pretty satisfied with that so far. We look forward to seeing the Toro Rossos. They've been solidly in the top 10, haven't they, in every practice session. That's plenty of curb into turn 1 for Valtteri Bottas. They then sort of hook up on the inside, and he didn't get across there, like Rosberg, didn't get across where he needed to be to sort of use it like a railway line, as I was explaining when I was out on track yesterday in FP2. But that's an improvement for Williams. But it was Fernando Alonso's gone 3rd, having done the fastest middle sector of everybody. And it once again confirms to me that they weren't particularly good laps from the 2 Mercedes drivers. And obviously the track is getting a little bit sweeter too.
You'd imagine they'd be good enough for the top 16, but it might be a little more uncomfortable for them in the garage waiting on it. Now, Kimi Räikkönen has now set the fastest middle sector of 40.4. Räikkönen's looked really at home, and I hope I haven't put the curse on him on that one all weekend long.
Yeah, I think he has for a few races now. Somehow the balance of the car suits him, and I really noticed how precise he was yesterday, how nicely he was lining the car up against the white lines and the curves, carrying great speed, and that was precision, wasn't it? He just spread the word Pirelli down the wall.
And he goes fastest by 0.2 of a second. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen is going well in the middle sector as well. His teammate Daniel Ricciardo and Sebastian Vettel just coming out of the garage. Mrs. Räikkönen looks on from the Ferrari garage. Here's Verstappen, goes 2nd fastest behind Kimi Räikkönen. Now the picture starts to take an interesting twist. Do you really believe that there are 6 drivers that could get on pole here this evening? It could just take one lap of brilliance by any one of them.
When you said it, I thought, oh, I don't know if we're over-egging that there, but having now seen this, yes, the answer's yes. Oops, Jolyon's got locked up there. That's not going to help a whole lot. His speed onto the straight will be down as well if you don't carry the apex speed, and you take the punishment all the way down the straight as well for good measure. You never get to the VMAX, the top speed you would have done with a clean exit.
Had throttle problems and oscillations on the throttle in practice.
Okay, I think the front anti-roll bar broke. There's something wrong with the car.
He's about 5 seconds slow in the first sector, is Sebastian Vettel. A 32.7, and he's on a flying lap as well. And here's the thing, Martin, if something is broken, by going out as late as Ferrari have sent Sebastian Vettel out, you run the risk of not being able to fix that problem and get him back into the garage. Palmer goes 14th, Ricciardo goes fastest overall through the first sector. There are 7 minutes to go, but it's a long lap here, it's a slow lap. Can Sebastian Vettel get back? Can they fix it? Can they get him out? Can they give him a lap?
You're right, got an in lap, fix, and then a long out lap as well for good measure. Ricciardo shaping up for a hot lap at the back there as well, but Vettel then under a lot of pressure. Maybe it's down to 5 who can get pole position.
So, Daniel Ricciardo, slightly cambered left-hand turn, takes you onto the Esplanade Bridge, the Festival Hall. You'll be able to see away in the distance now, jamming on the brakes, one of the 3 heavy braking zones, as he makes his way into turn 14. And he is consistently setting purple sectors, is Daniel Ricciardo. This is a super lap from the Aussie.
He's in the form of his life. He's driving so nicely.
Almost as much of a home race as Melbourne for Daniel Ricciardo. Hails from Perth. It's only a short 5-hour flight from Singapore. And I know there are lots of Aussie fans who have come over to cheer him on. I think that was an Aussie flag waving him on as he makes his way round the final turn. More sparks from Daniel Ricciardo by 0.7 of a second. He sets the fastest time. Wow.
Cracking lap. And he wasn't pushing his luck, but he was pushing the limits of everything that was out there. Really on it there, Daniel Ricciardo. So 1-3 for Red Bull.
And while we were watching Daniel Ricciardo, Sebastian Vettel has stayed out on the track. Let's go down to 10.
Well, he has to, Crofty. I'm down at Ferrari looking at the pit wall because it takes longer than 7 minutes to change a front anti-roll bar if indeed there is a mechanical breakage of it. Did he damage it going over, or is that Raikkonen? That's Raikkonen. But I'm just squinting at a monitor across the pit lane here, Crofty. But yeah, no sign there. So Ferrari have to keep him out, get him to do a lap time which they hope will get him out of Q1, and then they'll have a bit of time in the gap to change it if there is a mechanical breakage of that ARB.
Yeah, he was 9/10 down in the first sector, Vettel on where he needed to be. So what's the cutoff going to be? He's probably got a couple of seconds spare.
This doesn't look fast enough. 41.8, Martin, for the middle sector. Look, he's nearly 3/10 outside of a time to get him into the top 16. This doesn't look quick enough for Sebastian Vettel. This time last year, Sebastian Vettel took pole position in Singapore. Went on to win the race, of course, for Ferrari as well. He might not even make it out of Q1.
Rear suspension's broken because you can see it lifting the wheel through every corner. It's amazing he can keep it on the track, frankly, and he's not bothering. He's coming in. It's just picking its front wheel up, so something dramatically broken, presumably the heave damper at the back, something like that, that's allowing, or just allowing the car to roll massively at the back end.
From pole to the back of the grid in the space of 12 months, it has not been a great weekend.
That's just stupid, losing time.
Even before this moment. As they wheel that car back into the garage, I'm sure the 4-time world champion would like them to wheel it just a little bit further back and straight into the hospitality unit.
Look at it pick its inside wheel up. There you go again. So it's just got a massive amount of roll across the chassis. They have hugely complex suspension systems on them, and involving some hydraulics. They can't be connected front to rear anymore, but they still use hydraulics front and rear, not connected, to control the car vertically and make sure that, and that looked a real handful. And I'd be surprised if that's a quick fix.
That's probably what Maurizio Arriva-Bene is thinking about Ferrari and salvaging their season as well. They remain winless in 2016, and their hopes of a good evening here in Singapore, resting now on Kimi Räikkönen. Luckily for them, he's got the second fastest time. So 3 minutes just under to go.
Yeah, it has to be something in the middle of the car, doesn't it? Because he was doing it on left-hand, right-hander, so it's not like he's got a wishbone failure or a push rod or anything like that on just one corner. It's something suspending the car equally in the middle. And that, you know, because they carry so much incredible load through high-speed corners with the downforce and the slick racing tyres, you know, they're not pieces that are thrown on the car and easily replayed. Let's see what it was. You know, sometimes they do have for performance adjustments. You can make a quick change on a torsion bar or something you know, they might be able to throw something in quickly.
It's so tight, Martin, in terms of the times that Felipe Massa's coming out now. Esteban Gutierrez with the 7th fastest time is coming out, not Carlos Sainz. And Carlos Sainz set his time of a 1:45.4 on the super soft tyre. His teammate Danny Kvyat was on the super soft as well. Kvyat's come back out again. Toro Rosso trying to save sets of the ultra soft tyre. They brought 8 with them for this weekend, and well, you have to feel a little bit sorry for Sebastian Vettel this season, and I suppose particularly tonight, because he would have come here expecting something better in qualifying to give him a chance of the race win he desperately covets for this year and for Ferrari.
Yeah, that's getting out of that. Hands over the steering wheel. The governor there has got one car in contention and one car starting at the back of the most difficult grid of the year, I would say.
Yep.
Safety cars, we've always had a safety car here, so a safety car might play into his hands. A virtual safety car won't, of course, but Vettel then is relying on now the misfortune of others. He'll struggle to make his way through that pack.
So, down to Grosjean, still in the garage. And Sebastian Vettel, first or second in the last 6 consecutive Singapore Grand Prix. And for the first time ever, he's going to start outside the top 6 here for this race. We saw Jenson Button across the line earlier. He was up in the top 10 at that stage, but currently P14 on the cusp very much. Here's Ted.
Yeah, dangerously close to the cut-off time, which we think by common consent in the paddock seems to be mid to low 1:46. Doesn't it? So if Jenson could just find a few tenths, then he'll be very comfortably, or relatively comfortably, inside that. But then so might the Toro Rosso that we're watching now. So it is starting to get very tight for that last position. Crofty, how are the sectors looking for Jenson?
Personal best at the moment. So about a half a second adrift of fastest, so it's a good lap.
Danny Kvyat crosses the line, goes 5th fastest. Checkered flag is now being waved. Nico Hülkenberg, I don't think got to the checkered flag in time. 1:46.0 for Nico Hülkenberg. He was sent out of the garage quite late, and I don't think he got to the flag in time. He didn't, Martin, to actually start this flying lap that he wanted to be on.
That might turn out to be painful.
It could well be. Button goes 5th fastest, pushes Hülkenberg now down to 13th. What about Marcus Ericsson? Sadly for Marcus Ericsson, only 16th fastest for him. Sauber drivers 7-7 in their qualifying head-to-head. And Ericsson at the moment ahead of Felipe Nasser. Jolyon Palmer would dearly love to get out of Q1, and he's not managed it. 17th fastest at the moment for him. What about Kevin Magnussen? Magnussen crosses the line, beats his teammate, doesn't beat it out of the bottom 6, neither does Felipe Nasser as well. And Wehrlein and Ocon to come. Sergio Perez, Bottas and Hülkenberg on the track. Hülkenberg is not on a flying lap. He's rather given this one up and, as you say, hoping on the pain of others. Pascal Wehrlein now, who's actually been into Q2 in the dry 3 times this season. Crosses the line, doesn't make it today. Only 20th for him. Esteban Ocon, can he beat his teammate in quali for the first time? He can't. 21st, but not last. Sergio Perez goes 5th fastest. And it is some usual suspects and Sebastian Vettel in that bottom 6.
The track is really improving quickly, isn't it? Times are coming down. Palmer had a difficult middle problem somewhere, and so he's locked up on the way into one, hit the curb on the inside, and that's chucked him across the road.
Afraid we're out. No brake grip.
No rear grip for the man who was on pole here for the GP2 feature race in 2013. Pascal Wehrlein struggling for grip. Well, certainly struggling to stay off the curbs and rather getting that man beached as he went over the red and white curb. Ted, down to you.
Such a disappointment then for Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari. The big story, of course, of Q1, and then we can see with the FIA, the chap just looking at what parts, of course, the car is in parc fermé now, they will need to change. But just to go through the timeline of what happened before we hear from Sebastian Vettel and Rachel Crofty, when he was doing his lap, even if he'd boxed, come into the pits at that time, there wouldn't have been enough.
Good job, guys. That was a nice lap.
Good, well done, Marcus. There wouldn't have been enough time to fix that. It takes at least 10 minutes, in my experience, to fix something like that in the suspension. So even though Sebastian Vettel on the radio said that was a mistake keeping me out, perhaps we should have come in, then I don't believe there would have been enough time. As it was, when he did come in, the mechanics only had about a minute and a half if they wanted to fix it and get him out to do another run at the end. But that certainly wouldn't have been enough time to fix it. So that was the chronology of what saw Vettel crash out of qualifying at a race that he fancied he might win.
Thank you very much, Ted. Marcus Ericsson, previous best qualifying in Singapore was 17th. He beats that by 1 today at 16th for him, but that not the story really of Q1. Paul de Resta.
Yeah, we're just going to take you a little look through the Ferrari. Vettel, just let you play it in slow motion, just let you see exactly what's happened. You can see he's losing the contact in the front of the tyres. He's just unable to brake. Now you just watch the inside. I'm just going to pause at that point and just show you. Just watch how the wheel under rotates as it's bouncing off the ground. And he's losing the grip. Play it a little bit further. Now look how long that car's up in the air. It's just not getting the contact he needs, and that's the tyre you definitely want to be looking at. And just watch how this continues all the way through the corner. Just play it on, and you can just see as he tries to brake for the next corner, it locks directly. So in my experience, I'd say that's more from the rear because you're not getting the support you need when you turn in. But we'll wait to hear. I'm sure Sebastian will confirm soon. Just in case you've not watched any of the coverage this weekend, let's have a look at Ricciardo. Get your eye in for the lap, and what a good lap it was. I'm just going to play it right from the start into turn 1. No signs of what Mercedes, they had issues into here earlier. Daniel, I think he's got a little bit in the bag as well at this point. Accelerating out at 3, he's getting all the grip. This is the first time he's probably been on the lowest fuel level all weekend. Into 5, nice big fast corner. You want to let the car bring you to the wall. Down the straight through 6, completely flat, DRS open again. We saw Hamilton having issues here in FP3 before this session. Ricciardo, no signs of that. Red Bull working really well. Nice positive front. He lets the car support on that exit curve. Finds himself at turn 8. This is where Rosberg made his mistake, so he's got a bit of time in the middle sector. Nice long left-hander corner coming up. Let the car again get as close to the wall as you can. Bring it across. You want to be nice and straight because you'll see it's just going to jink to the right as we approach the corner. Left. Now we're approaching the Anderson Bridge. Ricciardo had a spin here yesterday, but all looking very comfortable. Again, he's just letting the car do most of the work here. He's confident. Just slightly misses the apex here, so expect a little bit more the next time. I'm going to alert you, just have a look at Danny Rick's dash as he arrives down here. You're going to see he's going to make some changes. He's going to make a torque change. That could be engine braking just for the final sector. Remember, the rear tyres are getting hot at this point, starting to lose grip. You just see that change coming up now. You just see torque 7. So we're now down through into the slower part of the lap. Managed to do a purple sector in every sector so far, so he's the fastest of anybody. Again, he's able to get on top of the curbs. A lot of cars not able to do that, but it just shows you their compliance to what Red Bull have got, the stiffness for the aero versus the mechanical grip you need out of the tyre around their track. Very committed, just going to nice and accelerate. Now into exit of here, a lot of cars have hit the wall this weekend. He stays well away from that. I'm sure come qualifying 3 he'll be able to do that. And again into the last corner, a superb lap, quicker than what he managed to do, and you can see his dash, and that's the benchmark for Q2.
Let's get straight to the pen. Sebastian Vettel is talking with Rachel.
Sebastian, the toughest race of the year. Okay, well, Sebastian, the toughest race of the year, though, to start from the back of the grid. Just tell us what the problem was as far as you know right now.
I don't know yet. Felt like an anti-roll bar broke, but to have a look for now. The most important is that the second car doesn't have any damage like that. So unfortunately we couldn't save the car into the second qualifying and have a look. We ran out of time.
We heard you say we're losing time. This is stupid going around.
Well, obviously I was a bit annoyed because first we decided to go for another lap, but yeah, it wasn't really any quicker. And then we decided to pit to try and fix it, but I think anyways there was no time to do it.
Rather get a feeling Sebastian Vettel doesn't want to do any of those interviews whatsoever. Just wants to go and sit and reflect on probably the most miserable 18 minutes of qualifying he's experienced in a long, long time.
Yes, and he knows he's got a very long evening tomorrow evening to follow it up as well for good measure. But let's see, the points are handed out at the end of the longest, hardest race of the year. So they don't hand the points out today, but if he gets a few, he'll be doing very well.
Well, he should take comfort maybe from Max Verstappen last year. Plumb last at one stage, he lapped down before the safety car, and he came home to finish in the points in his Toro Rosso after stalling on the grid. 8th here this time last year. So Sebastian Vettel's out, as is Esteban Ocon, 3-0 at Manor. Pascal Wehrlein out qualifying him for the 3rd race in a row. Jolyon Palmer, Felipe Nasser and Kevin Magnussen, the other trio not to make it through the Q2. So Marcus Ericsson is the man that gets into Q2. And for the first time since China, 12 races ago.
So it looks like Mercedes then are committing to ultra soft at the start of the race. No practice starts this time around because these are the tyres. If they do a good lap, they will start the race on, assuming they get through to the top 10 shootout, which we'd be somewhat shocked if they didn't, unless they had a problem. But Mercedes going out. The problem with sending 2 cars out like that, and you have to do it really, but I remember Ken Tyrrell was so hot on this. This was a very long time ago, but you know, if the car in front, which is Rosberg, you know, if he has a problem of any sort, makes a mistake or a car issue, the yellow flags will be out, and it wrecks your lap for both cars. But with this qualifying format, it's all you can do, isn't it?
Yeah. Ken Tyrrell, of course, one of the legendary team bosses over the years in Formula One. It reminds me to wish Sir Frank Williams a speedy recovery as well. He's not been too well recently, and hopefully watching the action back home in the UK this evening and willing his 2 Williams drivers on to make it into Q3. Toto Wolff and Niki Lauda, tense moments for them down at Mercedes. We wait for the rest of the cars to join Rosberg, Hamilton, Perez, Sainz, Ericsson, Fiat, Alonso, Bottas and Button on the track. Here's Ted.
Well, and down in Williams' garage, actually, interestingly, Felipe Massa taking it pretty easy. I just wonder if he's going to do one run in this session, Crofty. Bottas, I believe, is on an out lap. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I'm just watching Massa at the moment, taking it very cool and calm. Oh, no, they're just starting his engine up now. That's good to see. He's going to have a couple of goes, maybe, if he needs to. But Kimi Raikkonen, I thought it was interesting Sebastian Vettel mentioned him, because Raikkonen has actually been quicker than Vettel pretty much all weekend, hasn't he? Yes. So all credit to Kimi Raikkonen. And it's just saying what's important, Vettel said just there, was that the same thing doesn't happen to the other car, because that's the fastest Ferrari at the moment this weekend in Singapore. So Kimi has left the garage some 45 seconds ago. Brand new set of ultra soft tyres. Let's see what the Kimster can do.
We're looking down at the Sauber, making its way through the streets of Singapore towards the Padang area and the cricket ground.
So Red Bull then going with new soft tyres.
Soft tyres?
Super softs, rather than the ultra softs.
Yeah.
So they're going a different way to Mercedes and the one remaining Ferrari.
Well, they believe then that A, they've got the pace, B, they're going to get a decent start with those tyres, and C, going a bit longer for the first stint tomorrow could, well, A, keep their strategic options alive and B, rewarding for them.
And of course they can still use ultras to get themselves onto pole position.
Yeah.
So
and they can use, even if they find themselves in a bit of bother, they'll have 2 runs. I assume they can go for the ultra soft tyre and improve in this particular session. Watching Marcus Ericsson in his 50th Grand Prix start, the 4th Swedish driver to reach that number, assuming of course he does start tomorrow's race. A rare trip into Q2 for him. He's following on behind Kimi Raikkonen, who's about to start his flying lap. Ericsson's time will be a 1:48.2, and I dare say, Martin, that might be beaten.
So Rosberg 0.3 faster in the middle sector, a 10th slower in the first sector. As long as they get through, these are their race tyres, and it's a 43.0.
Is that fast enough for you?
That's better, isn't it? That's more like we were expecting. Wow. And he was quite a bit up on Lewis, and Lewis then goes with a 43.4. Now, it doesn't matter because it's not for the grid position.
What's interesting, Hamilton went quicker through the first sector. Had a bit of traffic, I think, over the Anderson Bridge, but I also wonder, he lost a lot of time in the middle part of the lap, and you kind of wonder, did he push a bit too hard on his tyres before he came upon that traffic?
So Ricciardo then sets about his lap. It'll be very interesting what he can do on the supers rather than the ultras.
3 compounds of tyre. Soft is the hardest, ultra soft is the softest, and somewhere in the middle is the red stripe. Is that about as little confusion as possible?
There's nowhere to go after an ultra soft, is there?
No.
Super duper extra, very soft.
Squidgy.
Yes, they're pretty squidgy anyway, aren't they?
Pirelli saying that as they test tyres for 2017, they would quite likely, the cars that they're using to test those tyres, have a little bit more downforce and give them a bit of a hand with constructing the tyres for next year. They tried to bring a new tyre to Malaysia for the next race. That's been scrapped as well, a more rigid construction. The teams didn't want it. Here's Valtteri Bottas to cross the line, 1:44.9 for him, goes 4th fastest. Kimi Räikkönen goes 3rd fastest. I can almost hear the groans from people's sofas. Martin, I know this is not, pole position time here, but he goes 3rd fastest. He's still 7/10 down on Lewis Hamilton and over a second down on Nico Rosberg.
And interestingly, Ricciardo and Verstappen doing very similar times. They're going to be about, well, they're already 6/7 down before the final sector. So on those tyres, but again, it doesn't matter for the grid. And where do they slot in? They're not at the end of the lap yet, no, but they're coming around very close to it.
Well, here's Ricciardo now, teammate Max Verstappen following closely behind. It's a 1:43.9 for Daniel Ricciardo. Verstappen goes a lot wider through the final turn. Might have lost a 1/10 of a second by doing so. 3rd and 4th fastest now. There's a buffer, isn't there?
Yeah, between 44.1. I mean, crucially, a fraction faster than Raikkonen. 44.1. I think you would be slightly nervously confident that that's enough to get you through to the top 10 shootout.
Yeah, Massa, Bottas, Hülkenberg will all hope that they can improve a little bit. Hülkenberg was on used tyres for his run of a 1:44.7. Sergio Perez crosses the line, and he puts himself only 12th fastest. So everyone has completed their first run in this Q2 session. Let's hear from another of the drivers knocked out in the first part of qualifying. Jolyon Palmer's with Rachel.
Jolyon, that sounded like a tough day today and a tough day on the radio. A couple of problems earlier, and then what was wrong then?
Yeah, the problem was FP3 was irrelevant for me because I had a car problem, so I had no feel for the car. And then, to be honest, qualifying was okay. And then the last lap I was improving, and then I picked up an oversteer on traction, pushing hard, and then the tyres just fell off a cliff. So the second half of the lap I lost a lot. So that's a shame to be pipped at the end, but anyway, yeah, I think we hope to be a bit quicker here. So see what we can do tomorrow.
Did you say no fuel in FP3?
No, I had fuel, otherwise I wouldn't have gone round. No, we found a special way. No, I had the balance was all over the place. Something was broken on the car.
Feels.
No feel probably. Yeah, something was broken, so I mean I was 1.5 seconds off, complaining of everything. We found the problem, we fixed it, but it's just difficult. It's the first time the car was representative today, so anyway, to be honest, it was okay. I just, like I said, I overheated the rears a lot on the last lap and I couldn't improve. It's a shame, but that's it.
Jolyon Palmer, so far this season down at Renault, trails Kevin Magnussen 10 races to 5 in qualifying.
Not working out for Jolyon, isn't it? Is it? He's just really, just won't flow for him. Crucial moment back in Hungary where he had a point in his grasp and that little spin. But he's got on terms of Magnussen. They're both very highly rated drivers, but several other drivers hovering around trying to get in the Renault as well. Absolutely. Next year.
You look at laps run in the points since Russia, when Renault actually scored their points. Jolyon Palmer's actually spent more laps in a points position than Kevin Magnussen has. It's like you say, in Hungary, it didn't translate to a points finish. And that was the one that kind of got away.
Yeah, I strongly suspect Renault will keep one of the two incumbents. But there's plenty of drivers around, I've said. And we think Esteban Ocon is heading there. Is that what you did in your pre-show stuff?
Yeah, I think we actually put Wehrlein and Ocon in there tonight because we couldn't agree, so we just decided we'd give both Manor drivers a slight promotion up the grid. But it would kind of make sense if you're Mercedes, you want to evaluate both driver against each other.
Doesn't make sense for a works Renault though, does it?
No?
Educate somebody else's drivers in that respect. But they certainly, Mercedes have turned the wick up, haven't they? But last year's pole was a 43.8. There's been a lot of development in that time, so I was fully expecting pole to, although this is not for pole of course, but be well into the 42s, and it may well be, yeah, but Ted's got more news.
I just think so. See, I kind of expected Mercedes to have a go on the red stripe super soft tyres to start the race on Crofty and Martin, but I just don't think it goes to their plan. Their plan seems to be that they know they've got the speed, start on the ultra soft tomorrow, and then 2 stops, and then you put the soft tyre on both of them. So it's up to Red Bull to try something different, which they have, which will be interesting for tomorrow. Just a quick update from McLaren on Jenson Button. He's been saying on the radio it's not really working out for him. They've got one of these magic paddles, Crofty, you know the kind, to do with brake balance. And when it's in its forward position, there's too much front locking. And then he switches the magic paddle, and then it's too much on the rear locking as well, rear. So he's not really getting much satisfaction either way.
Not at all. 3.5 minutes to go then of Q2 under the lights here in Singapore. Now who's looking in trouble? Ericsson, Grosjean, Alonso, Gutierrez, Perez and Button. Felipe Massa, a couple of tenths in the safety zone at the moment. Danny Kvyat. Valtteri Bottas must also be slightly concerned if Felipe Massa is worrying about his future in qualifying. That's the best bit about the night race, Martin, when you do get to see the look of concentration on the drivers' faces and stare into the whites of their eyes.
Clear visors help that.
Yep.
And we saw Vettel yesterday move with an orange visor, trying to get a little bit more light in. But Alonso then, one of the stars really of Q1, struggling at the moment.
Ericsson and Sauber have decided no point wasting a set of tyres here. We're not going to do any better than P16. We've given it a go. So there you are. So if you're Daniel Ricciardo, 143.9, is that good enough? Can anyone beat that? You get the feeling Red Bull are going to stick with the super soft tyre.
Yes, they have, because they're too late to get out really. So the top 5 are all in the pit still, and we have 10 on track at the moment. And yeah, I think that strategy, they've decided on that, they're going to go with that. And if they squeeze through into Q3, it's game on then for pole, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that 43.0 will have caught their attention. The early 45.0 was decidedly lackluster, wasn't it, from Mercedes? But 45.1 or whatever it was, but that's a whole new game.
Around the final turn, Fernando Alonso. Intense heat haze, and you see from the rear of the car, and then just getting shaken about all over the place over the bumps, and it to me has looked noticeably bumpier going into turn 1 this year.
Yes, it has. Eyes wide open, weren't they? Just glancing off everything, making thousands of decisions every few corners with your hands, your eyes, your feet, reacting to what the car's doing, what the track's giving you. You're bouncing around off the bumps and a little bit of street furniture there is up against the walls, and you're looking down the road, but then on a street circuit occasionally you have to bring your vision much closer and really just fine-tune the line of the car. Try to carry another 1 or 2 kilometers per hour through the apex, through the slowest part of the corner where you kiss the curb with the inside wheels. And he is hustling that over the Anderson Bridge, and a lovely line through the exit. He can straighten the car as soon as you can get the car straight, so you're not asking the rear tyre to keep turning the car. It'll give you better traction, and you launch off down to the next corner, and he's 0.130 underneath.
Oh dear, that's the Haas of Romain Grosjean. He's gone into the Tech Pro barriers and made quite a dent A double yellow flag being waved down at sector 2. It means that the two McLaren drivers can continue their lap and finish their lap. They should have been past the scene of that accident, but the checkered flag is now waving, and no, both McLaren drivers can't keep going. There's a problem there for Jenson Button. Fernando Alonso does put himself into the top 10. He was a 1/10 of a second inside it. So here we go, down towards turn 14, no, turn 11 I should say. Romain Grosjean, just no grip.
He was saying this is one of the worst cars I've ever driven when he came in at the end of free practice 3. That's a weird spin. That's the rear axle locking.
I don't know what happened right now, mate. Oh. Are you okay? I don't know. I've been on the braking. What happened? I don't know. Rear lock. Yeah, but why? The front locking every single lap.
Yeah. Okay, are you okay?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, sorry, dude.
Sounds a bit winded.
Yeah, it locked the rear axle under braking. You've got some harvesting going on, of course, as well. It's a brake-by-wire, so there's all sorts of things happening back there, and he is really struggling with the balance of that car.
You've also got Jenson Button with a problem. Remember, Fernando Alonso had a gearbox issue yesterday in practice and pulled over at exactly the same spot as Jenson has now. Let's have a listen on board with Button.
You can see his left rear is down when he went into the escape road. We were busy watching. Grosjean at the time, but you could see Jenson's left rear tyre crinkled up, and it looks like he tagged the wall.
Alonso did make it through into Q3, as did Carlos Sainz, Danny Kvyat, both safely through.
But Bottas and Massa not. They got caught up in the yellows.
Yeah, that was the trouble. They weren't past the scene of the accident when the double yellows started waving, and both Williams drivers then are out. The Force India of Nico Hülkenberg just made it through by the skin of his teeth, about 3/1000th of a second between Hülkenberg and Bottas. Sergio Perez made it through into the top 10 as well. And in a 3-point advantage that Williams have over Force India in the Constructors' Championship. I don't know, Martin, who wins and who loses out of that one? Massa might be starting 12th, Bottas 11th, but they get a free choice of tyre.
They do, but I think they probably fancied a top 10 shootout this afternoon. They've gone better in qualifying than perhaps we first thought they would. And what can you do if the yellow flags are out, especially now?
Yeah,
they've tightened up that rule, haven't they?
Well, listen, here's Sergio Perez. Now, did he set his fastest time passing the yellow flag zone?
But the car just got out of the way. What can he do? But yes is the answer to your question. But the car was off the racing line and just dived out of the way, he'll be saying to the stewards in a while.
It's, as long as you show you've lifted.
Yeah.
Ted, down to you.
So Jenson saying on the radio that it was a brush against the wall that broke the steering, Crofty.
Right.
I don't know if you heard that yet on the...
no, thank you very much.
Team radio, there you go.
Is it on the yellow flag or not? Perez, maybe. Perez was behind you and he come through here while all of this was yellow. It's still yellow.
Is that a conversation for Felipe Massa, Rob Smedley and Steve Nielsen, or a conversation that Charlie Whiting, the race director, was the beneficiary for?
But we've had this before when a driver gets excluded, but it sometimes doesn't happen fast enough for somebody else to be allowed in. For example, on this occasion, Valtteri Bottas. But after the yellow flag situation with Nico Rosberg, now they had to get right out of it, don't they? You basically, you have to treat it like a red flag, do you not? Well, it was a decision they made after the Rosberg scenario.
But the double waved yellows is always like, slow down sufficiently and be prepared to stop. That was the argument with Rosberg in Hungary, that he didn't look like he was prepared to stop.
But then, if you showed that you'd slowed down a bit and reasonably, you could carry on again. But my understanding is now they're going to, after other incidents, that it now is you have to basically abandon the lap.
Well, they haven't abandoned the Haas car number 8. That's being winched away. It won't be seen in Q3. Ericsson, Grosjean, along with Gutierrez, Button, Massa and Bottas, the 6 that have made way in a Q2 session that saw Mercedes increase their speed and increase their advantage a little bit as well. Ricciardo and Verstappen on the super soft tyres, well, when they put on the ultra softs, they still might be in the hunt. But Mercedes looking good after Q2.
Okay, Paul, let's have another look at that Grosjean interest. What did it look like to you?
Very quickly, just locked the rears. No way of catching it. I've seen a few guys go off there this weekend, both Spaniards, Alonso and Sainz yesterday, but unusual at that corner because normally it'd be front locking, but you can just see very little time to save it, and yeah, that's a very costly mistake.
He's been very outspoken about his car of late, Romain Grosjean. He's clearly not happy with what's going on down at Haas.
Yeah, that's the story, isn't it? He's not short on comments to and we've got an hour actually on board with Button, so we can see what happened to him. He looks like he's accelerating fine, very close to the wall on the exit. A little bit of a twitch on the entry, down changing, and then locks up on the right front.
And that tag on the wall broke the steering. I mean, just the slightest of kisses. I mean, that's how accurate you've got to be here, Paul, isn't it?
Hardly even touched it. I'm just wondering, look, it's a rear puncture at the back, so it's actually the rear, so it wasn't even the front.
Yeah.
And he's been very unfortunate there, because we've seen cars hit the wall hard this weekend and get away with it. So yeah, when it all counts, unfortunately for JB, it's going to be a difficult starting grid tomorrow. I'll
tell you what, Toro Rosso, the way they performed so far this season, there we go, Q3 is going to be delayed by 10 minutes, whilst they obviously repair those barriers. So stay with you for the moment, and just let's just a comment, if you like, on Sainz and Kvyat. Where's it come from, this Toro Rosso speed?
Well, they must have something very, very good with their car setup, and Kvyat's lit up again, hasn't he? He's looking like he's happy in this kind of track. So both of them up there and able to be competitive. It could be their car just makes the tyre work in the right way, can get the temperature to work and bring it in properly. That can be a huge amount if you can get that to work, and just getting a balance. They're both fantastic drivers for this sort of track too. I mean, it would suggest it's a chassis thing more than an engine thing, the way they've been going, because they haven't been...
It would be for their increase in speed, but I think the drivers should be given great credit. They look like they're on the right parts of the lap. They're using every bit of track available on a street track. That's the important bit, and yeah, they're just making everything work. But they're consistent. Not only are they doing it in their first lap, they're able to repeat the lap and almost do an identical lap 3 laps later when the grip's degraded. So yeah, it's a reasonable battle to see into Q3 where they're going to end up, and both on different packages. One's an older aero spec, one's newer. So which one are they going to run at the next race on the back of this?
Yeah, that was Romain Grosjean. Another look at that collision with the barriers. He sounded a bit winded, but thankfully he's okay, got out the car. They are repairing those barriers right now down at turn 10. And just another confirmation, 10-minute delay to the start of Q3. Let's hear from Jenson Button with Rachel.
Jenson, just tell us what happened there. Like, was it a slight brush with the wall?
Yeah, all weekend I've not been very quick. The balance, I just can't find grip. In qualifying, I could. The car felt much better, and we're just tickling the balance from Q1. Start of Q2 was okay, and that lap was, well, I didn't finish, it doesn't matter, but looking at the sectors, it was definitely good enough to get through to Q3. So I just tapped the wall in turn 14 on the exit. It didn't feel very hard, but it's broken the wheel and puncture.
So coming into this weekend, you'd said you'd hope to be the 4th most competitive car, or the 4th car. Do you think you were without that problem today? Did you feel it was there, or were you further back than that?
Oh, definitely possible to get into Q3. I think, yeah, where Fernando is, all weekend I've been a long way off, but qualifying, pretty good pace compared to Fernando. So I was pretty happy, but yeah, just went a touch wide on the exit there and tapped the wall. But I think the race, whatever, is very difficult for us if you look at our pace on long runs. The Toro Rosso and Force India are much quicker, so surprisingly.
It's going to be difficult to get in the points tomorrow then?
It's always difficult when you're not in the top 10 here, but also anything can happen here. There's always safety cars, and it's always a bit of action, so yeah.
As we see the barriers continue to be repaired, there's a fair amount of work still to be done. We've got about another 7 minutes or 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes, I think we've got to the start of Q3. Let's hear from both of the Manor drivers.
Pascal, how was that?
Difficult.
Why was it so difficult? Is it the track, the conditions, everything?
No, it's the track. You need a lot of traction, a lot of downforce, so we knew that we will struggle here this weekend. It's a completely different track than Monza or Spa, where you have some long straights, and yeah, we can play our advantage there, but yeah, here we are struggling a lot.
Is that going to make it a really long race tomorrow then for you guys?
It will be, yes, of course.
Okay, thanks, Pascal. Esteban, other than, I guess, a bit of running last night, it's difficult to get some laps in and a representative of this qualifying session. So how difficult was that session for you?
Yeah, not a great qualifying. Obviously, we are quite far back, and also I'm quite far back from my teammates, so not happy with that. I think we have a problem on the car. We have to investigate what it is before tomorrow, and if not, see what it is before the next qualifying, you know. So yeah, we look forward to tomorrow, see what we can do with all the strategy difference. It's a street circuit, so we never know what could happen.
Yeah, I know this is a track where actually it could have been a good gauge for you two, couldn't it, up against each other around this circuit in that car. So from your point of view, problems with the car, how did the lap feel, though, the lap that you drove?
Well, it felt all right. That's why I think I can tell that there is an issue, because I mean I couldn't take more out, you know, of the car. So yeah, we have to have a good sit with the engineer and see what they say.
Thank you.
A pensive Christian Horner. They set their times, though, did the Red Bulls on the super soft. So looks like it could be a tight battle in there. And looking at the deltas between the tyres, between themselves and the Mercedes, and Kimi in their mix as well.
Yeah, of course, not forgetting Kimi, but I mean, you have to say that they've got quite a chunk of time to come on the Red Bulls, you know, to close their gap onto Mercedes. So it's going to be a very, very tight, a bit of a cliffhanger, actually, this qualifying.
Let's get the thoughts of Felipe Massa, talking with Rachel.
Very frustrating, I imagine, to be standing here right now, those yellow flags putting paid to that quick lap. Where could you have been, do you think?
Well, better than the lap time I did, for sure could have been a better lap time. I was already quicker than my best lap time that I have on that moment. Unfortunately, I had to slow down in the middle of the lap for the yellow flag. Maybe some other cars, they didn't, so it's important that they analyze everything in the best way. So, yeah, you know that it is not really a easy track for us. The race will be not a very easy race, but here we are in Singapore, everything can happen, we need to be ready for everything.
Are you talking about Sergio Perez then going past Esteban Gutierrez when the yellows were out, and obviously you're battling Force India for that fourth place?
Yeah, that's what I heard. So for sure I didn't see. I was on the driving and I slowed down for the yellow flag. Maybe some other cars they didn't, as I heard. So we need to analyze, and if this happens, so they need to do something.
If you're in Perez's position and you see Esteban slow down and move across, would you not try and go past, or would you hold back as well?
Well, my engineer told me to slow down completely, so I don't know exactly. And I think it was 2 yellow flags, not only one. If you slow down in the proper way in the 2 places, I think it would have been difficult to do a better lap time.
But on the positives, you get to choose choice of tyre tomorrow. Is that any benefit to you around here?
Here is important, so maybe I would say if I start 10th or 11, I prefer 11. So I am 12, we'll see what's going to happen.
The good old gripes about double wave yellows rear their head again. I mean, all you've got to prove is that you've lifted slightly. That's correct. I mean, it's under the single wave, yeah.
Yes, that's how the rule's been getting classified at the moment, but the interpretation of the rule is if it's double wave yellows, be prepared to stop. And again, the question is raised, was Sergio prepared to stop? And no, he's not. So
how long have you got to stop?
Well, that's the thing. How long have you got to stop? So that's where it's quite hard. But you know, you've been brought up. You know, there's risk of other people getting hurt, and yeah, I think the rules will be written slightly different next year.
You've got to lift enough to convince Charlie Whiting and Mark Blundell, haven't you?
Yeah. If it's double wave yellow, then the session actually gets red flagged. Right, let's hear from another driver.
Valtteri, scuppered by the yellow flags there at the end. How was your lap at that point? Were you up, and would you have been easily into Q3?
Yeah, it seemed like a good lap, and I did slow down a couple of tenths or so in that particular corner where I saw the yellow flag, and but still I managed to improve my lap time from the previous run. So definitely Q3 was was possible today. But let's see. You know, I heard some people didn't really slow down that much under the yellow. So let's see what's going to be the starting place tomorrow.
Yeah, that might be somebody you're battling hard against for fourth in the constructors right now. So possibly then a move forward 2/10 starting on your choice of tyres.
Yeah, let's see. You know, it's at least now anyway we can choose our tires, and that's always good. This is a very demanding race in terms of strategy. So yeah, hopefully we can nail it tomorrow, and at least all weekend actually the race pace, the long run pace has been looking better than over one lap in qualifying. So I think we can, no matter where we start from, we can fight with Force India and also Toro Rosso.
I was going to ask you that, your long run pace, does it look better than Force India's over the race?
It looks very similar. You know, they've been kind of one step ahead in over one lap for the whole weekend, but in the race pace very similar. So I think it's going to be a good race between us. Thanks.
Bottas. We'll see tomorrow, won't we, whether the choice of tyres at the start will prove crucial for Williams, or whether track position and a good getaway for Force India will help them. So it was after Hungary, Charlie Whiting basically said, it's a double wave yellow, then I will treat this as a red flag situation, and everyone's, you know, will just have to...
Lap is over, yeah.
Lap is over.
Even if you're 2/10 from completing the lap somewhere completely remote from the accident, you will not get that time. But he didn't put the red flags out. No. You know, he didn't. I think when he said that, it was he was going to absolutely throw a red. Yeah. It wasn't just going to be treated as a red, and obviously we didn't get a red situation.
We didn't. The red situation that we need to concentrate on now, though, is Ferrari. Kimi Räikkönen, is he the man to give Ferrari their second pole in successive years here in Singapore? Is Max Verstappen about to claim his first pole in Formula One? What about his teammate Daniel Ricciardo? Both Red Bulls will improve, you feel, for putting the ultra soft tyre on, not the super soft tyre. Have the Mercedes still got the pace to keep the two Red Bulls at bay? What about the two Toro Rossos? Can they put themselves somewhere in the middle of a mix in that top 10? Fernando Alonso, what difference can the double world champion and former winner, of course, here in Singapore make for McLaren and their fortunes? And Force India, can they get ahead of McLaren, give themselves maybe a buffer against Williams in their fight of the Constructors' Championship?
I think, to answer your question, Ricciardo and Verstappen's time, of course, on the super soft, not the ultra soft. So they've got the best chance of frightening the Mercedes. You have to assume Mercedes have still got another notch of power to turn up yet when it matters most. So I still think it's a straight fight between the two Mercedes, but if Ricciardo and Verstappen, in terms of pole position, can pull something a bit special out of the bag, they might just frighten them.
Daniel Ricciardo, of course, who has qualified in the top 3 here in the last couple of years. Will it be the driver that makes a bit of a difference? We've had a lull while they refixed the barrier that Romain Grosjean crashed into, but the lights are on and we wait for the green light to go on for Q3. Celebrations this weekend in Singapore, and for Toro Rosso in their 200th Grand Prix as a constructor, both of their cars into this Q3 session. For Nico Rosberg, it's his 200th Grand Prix as a driver, and he has a realistic chance of pole position. Or will it be his teammate Lewis Hamilton, who nicks the top spot of the grid under the lights here in Singapore? We're all set. We've basically been waiting far too long for the denouement to this qualifying. The tension pretty unbearable, a bit like the heat in this commentary box because the aircon's broke, but finally we get the cars out on the track.
Pit lane was looking a bit busy, wasn't it? Cars are feeding in very close to each other, but out front then Hulkenberg, Alonso, Ricciardo got himself a nice bit of space as well. Rosberg now onto the track, and they're waiting for Räikkönen. Ted.
That's probably a good idea, Martin. It was crazy everybody just left at exactly the same time. It was Rosberg and then Ricciardo and then Hamilton and Verstappen. So they're all going to have to back off while they get all their tyres and their brakes up to temperature on their outlaps before we see whether Red Bull can do it. Can they challenge Mercedes for pole? Have they got something in the locker, in the engine settings that they can turn up, as Mercedes clearly did in Q2? But here comes Kimi now. Ferrari still in the game, you think?
Might be night qualifying, but it's better visibility than a cloudy day at most European Grand Prix. For that matter, look at that. Yeah, no problem at all seeing the track.
Yeah, the organisers claim it's 4 times brighter than you would get in a normal football stadium, for instance. 1,500 bulbs lighting up the track. Quite a few million just lighting up the night sky.
Taking it very steady on their outlaps, treating them like a proper set of qualifiers. So don't take any life out of them, don't fire them up until 2 or 3 corners from home. And you can start building it. You can keep the brake temperatures up, just keep your left foot on the brake at the same time as your right foot's on the throttle. And then, of course, they've got some minimum tyre pressures to stick to, so they'll be nice and low when they start the lap as well for good measure.
And Nico Hülkenberg has already started his first flying lap.
Right front's always very slow to wake up. Okay, copy. Just remember that big stop usually brings it back.
I'm assuming he means the right front brake, not waking up, not firing up to temperature.
And here comes Daniel Ricciardo then. Ripple of applause as he makes his way down the main straight, 195 miles an hour before he turns left-handed and through the first sequence of corners. Chance now to relax just a little bit before what's probably the best corner of the lots. It's turn 5, and did Daniel Ricciardo lose a heap of time there, Martin Brundle, by getting on the curb?
They do straddle that curb, but it didn't ride it at all well, did it? I wonder if he just had to get out of a bit and correct the car. It's really heavily on the ground at top speed. Man, this is like an American street circuit, 90 right, 90 left, and then they're straight down to turn 10. That looks a little bit wide as well. Slightly scruffy lap here from Daniel.
He lost 2/10 in the first sector compared to Nico Rosberg. Did Daniel Ricciardo. Certainly looked like he lost a lot of momentum before he made his way through turn 5.
Picks up the throttle nicely, diagonals the straight for the shortest distance to be on the left-hand side, so he can, in a straight line, brake, get all the downshifting out of the way, pick up the throttle mid-corner, and just drive through the exit. Little left kink into heavy braking zone for the harbour front chicane, effectively. Then you go back underneath the grandstands. Very neat and tidy in towards the end of the lap. I wonder if he's carrying quite enough speed, but he was certainly close enough to the barriers there. Nowhere near as good a lap as he did in earlier in qualifying.
Fernando Alonso with a 1:44.5 is 4/10 clear of Nico Hülkenberg. Ricciardo's never been out-qualified by a teammate here at 1:43.7. Will it be good enough? Certainly not for provisional pole, because here comes Nico Rosberg, 1:42.5. He beats that by over a second. We look now to Max Verstappen, who'll be the next driver to cross the line. I'll tell you that Lewis Hamilton lost a little bit of time to his teammate through the first sector and also through the second part of the lap as well. Verstappen losing time to his teammate, 1.2 seconds off the pace. Here comes Hamilton to cross the line, goes second fastest, 7/10 of a second between Rosberg and Hamilton. Looked at that middle sector, he lost about 6/10 of a second through there.
3/4 of a second behind Rosberg, as you say. Wow. And we'll see if he had any errors in there. Let's see if this man can get ahead of the Red Bulls, and he can.
Yeah, he's a second off the pace, but he is ahead of both Ricciardo and Verstappen. Kimi Raikkonen's best qualifying here in Singapore is a couple of thirds on the grid. That's where he is at the moment. Rosberg ahead of Hamilton. He's had a much more pleasant time of it on a qualifying simulation so far this weekend. Did it show there, I wonder, that he managed to get the laps in practice?
Red Bull starting on the super softs rather than the ultras that they're now on. They really didn't find that much time, did they?
No.
Oh, that was a really bad lap. We need to check what we can do with the tires, mate, because like this is struggling a lot. I'm looking rears, looking fronts.
Yeah, the outlap was compromised there, mate. Outlap pace
we need a free lap. I don't care to go 10 seconds, 20 seconds earlier.
So he didn't have the preparation he wanted at the start of the lap. But both Red Bull drivers then with a time that was nowhere near where they expected it to be. But I don't think they're going to touch Rosberg. Is anybody going to touch Rosberg?
It's an awful lot to make up without actually seeing a mistake that would have cost 6/10 of a second. You wonder where in that middle part of the lap did Hamilton certainly lose it. Just wondering though, it It's incredible how things in Formula One change, isn't it, Martin? Once upon a time, you'd see a shot of Jos Verstappen anywhere, and it would say Jos Verstappen, Formula One driver, and now it says Max Verstappen's family. Tedos, down to you.
Oh, there's a little fight in the pit lane, not between people, between Max Verstappen, who's desperate to get back to his garage, and he forced India downstream. Verstappen has just kind of overtaken slightly. He's impatient, isn't he? Frustrated, Verstappen, but all going well for Nico Rosberg, driving brilliantly. You have to say, whatever Hamilton's problems are with this mechanical part that Toto talked about before the start of the session, didn't he, Crofty? So there's some mechanical part to do with the braking, or are we to take it that it was this hydraulic front suspension, middle third element that he's talking about?
Well, it was hydraulics that was the problem for Hamilton yesterday, of course.
Yeah, but that was just a hydraulic loss of pressure. This is actually something on the car, whether it's a anti-lock system on the brakes or something that Hamilton wasn't happy with in FP3 that they thought they'd fixed for this session. Anyway, that's another thing, but Rosberg driving brilliantly. The only problem that he's having, he's reporting on the radio, is a little bit of corner entry oversteer. He says just check asking his engineers just to check the differential settings, that nothing's changed on them, but otherwise going well.
And that 1:42.5 from Rosberg actually beats the all-time fastest lap here in Singapore, a 1:42.8 by Sebastian Vettel, pole time in 2013. There's been slight modifications of the track since then, but he's beaten it by quite a long shot and has provisional pole at the moment. Lewis Hamilton has the front row alongside him. It would be his 100th front row start, and the second driver ever to reach that total.
Daniel just never, even in turn 3, he was much more cautious and didn't have the grip to carry the speed in the Red Bull. So they'll approach this outlap somewhat differently, I'd imagine. Prepare their tyres a little bit better. They become the most highly paid heating engineers in the world on this lap, keeping certain bits hot and other bits cool.
And the track temperature just doesn't budge now. The temperature stays fairly much the same. So one little bit extra from the drivers, a bit more rubbering in on the track surface itself, the time should improve.
So Max, if you need to pass the Mercedes, then do so.
And he did.
Yeah. He was just about to say he's still got traffic. So he wants, they're both Red Bulls needing to go faster. They can't fire the tyre up like Mercedes-Benz can.
Kimi Räikkönen is going to be the last man to cross the line to start his flying lap. So we're all going to have to wait for Kimi Räikkönen to see how this qualifying sorts itself out.
Once again, it exposes you to any yellow flag situations. And of course, as we knock drivers out, less and less chance of yellows.
But it's risky, but Ferrari have been consistently behind everybody else as to when they come out. Former Ferrari world champion, of course. Ronaldo, Toto Wolff, as ever, alongside him.
So Lewis can see Nico through this lap, although that can be very distracting sometimes. He's done this enough times, hasn't he? But yeah, still really coasting along, aren't they? Mercedes treat them like a pure qualifier. Red Bull also now line astern and ready to go for it.
Yep, Ricciardo crosses the line now to start his final flying lap of this session. Max Verstappen swiftly follows on. Red Bull, the only team other than Mercedes to get a pole position in 2016. Red Bull on the podium every year here since 2010. Mercedes, not their best track, it has to be said, only one podium here for them, and that was this man's win in 2014. Daniel Ricciardo through the first sector, only a 27.5, and Max Verstappen has gone 2/10 slower than that. You're almost ruling Red Bull out with just a third of the lap completed.
Rosberg at 27.4, he's lost a little bit of time as well. I thought it looked like Lewis went a bit wide, and indeed he did. At 27.6, he went and took a lot of the artificial grass in turn 2.
Absolutely incredible this, Martin. Only Max Verstappen has improved on his first sector time. and the track temperature has stayed absolutely the same. Danny Kvyat now improves his, as does Carlos Sainz, first sector times, but nobody's setting purples here at all.
39.6 middle sector for Ricciardo, so that's a little bit better. 39.7 for his teammate. Ricciardo's got his teammate covered by 0.3 so far. Can he get past Raikkonen? He needs a quarter of a second on Raikkonen's current time, that is.
But are they finding that quarter of a second, or have we reached the zenith in terms of lap times and lap speeds for this session? Neither Rosberg nor Hamilton are improving.
Poor middle sector from Hamilton, very poor middle sector.
Improving on their sector times to try and beat their times on the post. Look, but there goes Ricciardo.
Second.
Great final sector from Ricciardo, went purple. He's on the front row. Verstappen only 4th fastest. Ricciardo leads it for Red Bull. Rosberg doesn't improve, but still retains that provisional pole. Hamilton will start 3rd at the moment, unless Kimi Raikkonen can do something about that, because he's not improved on his time either. Crossing the line next, the Red Bull of Danny Kvyat. He's 6th fastest. Next comes Fernando Alonso to cross the line. Alonso 8th fastest. This is what happened into turn 1 for Hamilton.
Yeah, I thought so. He just ran wide. And he had a poor middle sector as well, and he's paid the price. He's on the 2nd row of the grid. Ricciardo flying, oh, there you go. That's why he had a poor middle sector, straddling the curb as well, for good measure.
2 drivers still out on track, one of which is Sergio Perez. He was 10th fastest, he is still 10th fastest, and we look for Kimi Raikkonen, who will be the last driver to cross the line. He's just making his way now past turn 21, final corner to go. Ricciardo blitzed the final sector. Raikkonen hasn't blitzed the final sector. So Daniel Ricciardo puts Red Bull on the front row. Nico Rosberg in his 200th Grand Prix start will start on pole position. 2 points separate the front 2 in the championship, and 2 places on the grid separate the front 2 on the championship, as Hamilton starts 3rd from Verstappen, Raikkonen, Sainz, Kvyat, Hülkenberg, Alonso and Perez.
Wow, Ricciardo stole that, didn't he?
Absolutely nobody was setting purple times. Hardly any personal best sectors either. And then up pops Ricciardo.
Woohoo! So I think that's going to be pole position, Nico. Good job, good job.
Thank you, guys. Very cool qualifying. Great job.
By some margin. 0.6 of a second, well, just over half a second actually. And Ricciardo, he did a very good middle sector. He did do a personal best, 39.6 middle sector, Ricciardo, and it was enough while Hamilton was having his dramas. He's had plenty of those through today as well, hasn't he?
First ever pole in Singapore for Nico Rosberg. And it has been something of a drama of a weekend for Lewis Hamilton, not always his own fault, but he takes all of that now into a race. Can he retain the air of a, well, whatever happens, happens?
So Mercedes, Red Bull, and they're on different tyre strategies.
Yeah.
That's a nice recipe, the front of the grid there.
And then Kimi Raikkonen, who goes a lot longer on the softer tyre, or has done. And then Carlos Sainz and Danny Kvyat, right there in the mix as well.
Tremendous job they've done all weekend. Kvyat's been on form again.
And Raikkonen starts behind Verstappen. And we all know what happens when Raikkonen's behind Verstappen.
Alonso rang the neck of the McLaren there to get it into the top 10. Good effort. So both Force Indias in there, both Toro Rossos, 1 Ferrari, both Red Bulls, both Mercedes.
And for this man, Nico Rosberg, consistent qualifying. The last 21 consecutive races, he's been either first or second in qualifying. Today it's first. And for Mercedes-Benz engines, the 150th pole position in Formula One. He's on the comeback trail in the championship. He's got the lead down to 2 points. And he's struck first blood where it starts to really matter here in Singapore this weekend. Nico Rosberg.
Here's the run down to the first corner. But I think Red Bull are going to keep them honest all evening, tomorrow evening.
Yep. Here you go then. The classification for qualifying. Rosberg from Ricciardo. There's no Mercedes 1-2 on the grid here. Hamilton doesn't get his 100th front row start. Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari in the top 5. 2 Toro Rossos, should be a good scrap between them. Hülkenberg ahead of Alonso, Sergio Perez ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Then Felipe Massa will start 12th in this race, the pole sitter in 2008. Jenson Button, who kissed the wall at turn 14 and got a puncture, he said, starts only 13th. Romain Grosjean, who crashed out, starts 15th. And Sebastian Vettel, do you remember Q1? When Sebastian Vettel couldn't get out, anti-roll bar, it looked like, had broken. You've got one Ferrari, starts 5th, the other starts 22nd. They've got it all to do in tomorrow's race. But what about Mercedes? On pole here in Singapore this evening, here's their Executive Director Technical, Paddy Lowe, is with Ted.
Well done, Paddy. How much would you say is that a bit of a relief?
It is actually, because you know, it was pretty tough last year. We didn't get it right then, but you know, terrific lap from Nico as well. We didn't see that coming at all. You know, he really put a fantastic lap together.
Well, indeed, it's absolutely stunning, and the gap to Lewis consistently has been quite high, hasn't it? How do you explain that? What have Hamilton's problems been?
I think Lewis has struggled to really get a lap in practice. You know, he did a good time yesterday on the Super Soft, but on the Ultra he hasn't really had great sessions. So it just hasn't had the same practice that Nico's had. This is a circuit, you know, where in the end you need to start concentrating on driving and not setup, because there's a lot of time comes in the practice and the execution of it. So.
Okay, and just finally, could Red Bull doing the different tyre start cause a problem for you strategy-wise tomorrow?
No, it's certainly a difference, and that's going to create some interest in the race. Be different off the line. It'll be, you know, they can perhaps run longer, but then we have 2 softs and they only have 1. So, you know, some games to play. And of course, in the mix, we'll get a whole load of safety cars as normal. So,
smile is on your face. Okay, and thank you very much.
So, Paddy, looking forward to the tactical battle tomorrow. Lewis Hamilton on track. We'll be looking forward to trying to get ahead of those 2. But you have to hand it to both Nico Rosberg and Daniel Ricciardo. When it mattered, they put in the times. That is your 1-2-3. Rosberg, on the occasion of his 200th Grand Prix start, will begin from pole. Well done to him off the back of a couple of victories since the summer break. As we discussed beforehand, he has got the momentum right now. So, live only on Sky Sports, the Singapore Grand Prix get underway from 11:30 in the morning. The race starts at 1 and we'll react live from the paddock from 3:30. Now, loads of big events to look forward to on Sky Sports over the coming weeks. Europe and the USA go head-to-head at the Hazeltine National Golf Club for the Ryder Cup. All 3 days live, only on the dedicated Sky Sports Ryder Cup channel from the 30th of September. England cricket team prepare for their tour of India with the first 3 one-day internationals and 2 test matches against Bangladesh from the 7th of October. Old Trafford hosts the Super League Grand Final on the 8th of October, and you can see every one of England and Ireland's autumn international rugby fixtures exclusively live. Sky Sports from the 5th of November.